let's discuss the relationship between the governor and the chief minister. The context we are discussing the topic is that CM of West Bengal blocked present governor of West Bengal on Twitter. Now, this news has, or this topic has many angles. First, political angle. Then we have administrative angle. Third, we have center-state relations angle. Right? Like the federal structure of the country. Then also we have the ethical angle. Ethical angle because the dignity of both the offices are very high. Of both the offices is very high. Because one is the head of the government and one is the head of the state. Right, head of the government, CM, because she is the executive head of the present government, and he is the constitutional head of the state because he is the topmost authority, who? The governor. Right. Now, before I start this topic, I would like to tell you that if you see these type of news on television, in newspaper, that this news clearly says that Madam Mamata Banerjee blocks Honorable Governor on Twitter. So, what do you get a glimpse in your understanding that definitely the governor of the state and the CM of the state, they are not sharing a convenient, smooth, interactive, ideas exchanging, information exchanging, productive, discussion based relationship. All these things is missing here, right? Now, if the smoothness between the CM and governor is missing, what could be the ultimate consequences of this bitterness in the relationship? That the arena and space and scope is created where a third party can make an entry. And the third party here is none other than the central government. I'm talking about the political angle here. Because if the government of the day in center is belonging to a different political party, because political parties are coming up on the ideologies, and if the present day government in the state is belonging to the another party, political party, then the central government, since holding the more power, more prerogative, more scope and more space to make changes in the federal working of the Indian governance for short-time basis or short-term basis, right? Also, if anything of that sort of nature is happening in the state, then ultimately who will be suffering, or in what context it will give a sufferance, or it will impact? It will impact in the terms of policy making, policy implementation. Why policy making? Because the assent by governor might be delayed unnecessarily, right? Because sometimes the tussle becomes so personal in nature that the dignity of the officers are not maintained. And this has been a problem between the chief ministers and governors of many states and union territories, or lieutenant governor in those cases, because Center and state relations in India since independence have been the major focus of contradictions, of debates, discussions, dialogues in negative terms, and how to smoothen those relationships. We have many commissions who have suggested many reforms in this arena. For example, the important is Sarkaria Commission. Very important commission is Sarkaria Commission that actually talked about the central state relationships. And here they majorly focused on the role of governor. What they said that the governor should work or act like a bridge so that a smooth and strong connection remain built up between the state and central governments, so that no confusion, no discrepancy, and no issues are pertained. Right? Because the role of governor is highly important in this context, because the governor provides the assent to the bills, and if the assents are not provided on time, then they are generally remain kept on the table. So it is basically the table veto or pocket veto exercised on the bills. And if the government is elected by the state, by the people's choice, then the trust people have given to the government of the day, why the representative government should not make laws and get them implemented. And in this manner, the governor becomes the constitutionally bound, the morally bound and administratively bound to ensure the adherence and well exercise of that authority or trust what people have enshrined in the government of the day, right? But here again, the governor has a great instrument through which they can delay this process, which is Article 200, where the governor can reserve the bill for president to take a look. Right? Article 200, the major bone of contention between the troublesome relations between the CM or the government and the governor. If that is also not the case, then ultimately the final nail in the coffin is the Article 356, followed by which follows Article 355, because it states that when the state government is not able to carry out the executive functioning in the state, then the Article 356 in the form of punishment is generally taken. And in this manner, the state governance comes under the direct rule of president, and president works on the aid and advice of prime minister or council of ministers at central government. Article 74 you might have studied. So hope you have understood that what context I am talking about here and how the situation is to be discussed in this manner. So the relationship between the CM or the present head of the government of the day and the governor of the state has to be maintained purely and smoothly, because ultimately it is going to paralyze the governance of the state. And sometimes we have seen that these personal differences are so high or so major that who is wrong, who is right, we do not get this. But sometimes the political troubles are created in this manner, the administrative hurdles are brought in this manner, that for example, mostly the government in Delhi and the differences between the lieutenant governor in Delhi are mostly in the limelight, or they are finding a mention in the news. Sometimes Supreme Court has to interfere. Supreme Court has to interpret the the various articles of constitution to ensure that the steps taken by either of the parties is wrong, is valid, or constitutionally validated in that context. So here in this context, if you understand the background that what I just want to tell you, so let's take a look at what happened in this case. What happens is that Madam Chief Minister in West Bengal has blocked the Twitter account or has blocked the Twitter handle of the Honorable Governor of the state in her profile or in her box, whatever you call that, right? So it is basically an individual action they have taken against each other, or Madam has just taken. Now, in this context, actually, Governor Saab mentioned some articles. So those articles for us are important to know and understand because they might be peculiar to be asked by UPSC in prelims or the mains examination, especially in the wake of central and state relations, where the ethical, moral issues are also involved, administrative issues are involved, and the dignity and decorum of both the officers are at stake. So how to maintain that? So that is why I have asked you to look this issue from many angles, right? So what happens is that in an unprecedented move, West Bengal Chief Minister said she was forced to block West Bengal governor on Twitter after getting irritated by his constant abuse against her. Abuse against her means abuse against the bureaucratic and executive function of government. And bureaucratic actions of officers. This is what she meant against her, means it's not a personal remark in this context, right? So the governor in turn shared screenshot of article 167 on social media. So that becomes very important. So within this entire context, we have to understand this broader relationship between these two constitutional authorities, right? Governor and Chief Minister, Article 163. What states that? I would like to quote here: there shall be a council of ministers with the Chief Minister as the head to aid and advise the governor on the exercise of his functions, except in so far as he is required to exercise his functions or any of them in his discretion. So it is talking from the perspective of governor of the state, that the council of minister of state, the council of minister of state, which is headed by CM, should aid and advise the governor for the day-to-day developments and the executive functions of the government. That is Article 163. And looking at this parallel to the central setup, we have Article 74 that does the same thing, right? Now Article 164, it states that the Chief Minister shall be appointed by the governor and other ministers shall be appointed by the governor on the advice of the Chief Minister, right? The minister shall hold office during the pleasure of the governor. The pleasure is not personal pleasure, or it is not the personal discretion. In his authority or in his understanding, if the office held by the minister is not being run properly or it is not being handled properly within his discretion, through backed by the valid reasons, not personal reasons, valid reasons, which are in the context of the administrative setup of the government, so then only the office holding capacity of the minister is generally enjoyed ultimately over the pleasure of the governor. The council of ministers shall be collectively responsible to the legislative assembly of the state. So 163 and 164 you have understood. Now the important is Article 167. It shall be the duty of the Chief Minister. So it talks about the duty. So this is what Honorable Governor has tried to remind Madam CM, that what are the duties set up or generally given by the Indian Constitution, and how she should act in their adherence. To communicate to the governor of the state all decisions of the COM relating to the administration of the affairs of the state and proposals for legislation. So here the reason Governor Saab has quoted that this article, this clause A, it is not ideally exercised by CM of West Bengal. This is what he says, right? To furnish such information relating to the administration of the affairs of the state and proposals for legislation as the governor may call for. So here, the third para, without reading, I would just tell you that governor in this case is trying to convey the message that if exercising his prerogative to ask all these things, which is given as a duty to the on the chief minister, and it is enshrined in the Indian Constitution, that if these functions, calling for these functions, are being found as irritating activities by the governor, then what should he do? Do you understand my point? So there, Governor Saab has tried to justify his poking, his asking, or his calling for many single things, what Chief Minister Madam might have thought as, or what she has tried to convey, because this is what they are talking in the constitutional lines now. I'm not getting into the personal relationship, what kind of two individualistic domain, smoothness of the connections they are just adhering to or sharing. I'm not getting into that, but talking about the political system or the executive setup as per the constitution, the governor has been asking all these things which are duty or which CM is duty bound to provide. But are these being provided, or unnecessarily governor is creating trouble for the state government by holding assents to the bill, or unnecessarily getting into those actions where the day-to-day interference from the governor is not expected and not set by the constitution, because the governor shall work on the aid and advice of the government. There shall be a council of minister with the chief minister as the head and aid and advise the governor. So here also chief minister has also got this authority and this prerogative that they would aid and advise accordingly, but governor cannot just act in such a way that that governor office is running the government, because for this purpose people have rightfully elected in general elections the representatives who in turn have chosen their chief minister, who with a great sort of meeting and discussions and negotiation formed a council of minister, and that council of minister and CM being head of the council of minister is aiding and advising the governor. And if governor is going out of that authority of article 163 and just mentioning the article 167, here governor is not doing a justice, because article 163 and 167 is sharing a relationship, sharing a balance where both are giving the scope and ways to interact with each other without interfering into the domains, because governor has their self prerogatives, discretionary powers and so many things, but there is the space and context where they can use it. But they cannot use that in general terms. They cannot use them in the context of day-to-day functioning of the government. In this manner, many times we have heard Chief Minister of Delhi talking about these type of interference in the Legislative Assembly itself, right? And talking something in Legislative Assembly is making a fact, it is making an evidence to be quoted because all the proceedings are quoted and they are treated as rational. Right. So here the role of governor and relations between the CM and governor is very important, because just quoting articles individually according to their feasibility is not a good idea. We have to understand this entire context in the complexity and connectivity of different articles that has set the obligations, that has given the powers, that has given the authorities, and that has set the duties on all the constitutional authorities to make the smooth functioning of the setup, be it in central setup or in the state setup. And ultimately, we the people is the ultimate authority who has derived, who has made this constitution, and they have given it to themselves. So it means that the people of India are the important element within this entire game. And due to any interpretation, subjective in nature, right, or politically backing natured actions, probably promoted by the central government or the state government in favor or in not favor, that should not make this bureau, this governance system work inefficiently, because ultimately the people of the state or the constituency who have elected the government or the representatives from their constituencies, they are at the suffering edge. So the smoothness between these two constitutional authorities is a must, and this context must be understood in this entire proximity. I hope you understand the topic. Thank you.